Welcome to the Prize Podcast. We have TJ Carson with us, Tom, for those who don't know him. My name is Dan, tend to go by PJ. I'm the CEO of Prize, and we are going to deliver you content based on the transition out of the military. So Tom, hey, thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks, brother.
I appreciate you, dude. So Tom, TJ is an Air Force veteran. How long were you in?
8 years.
8 years. Okay. When did you get out?
I was served from 2003 to 2011.
Okay, cool. And he's currently the executive director of Victory House in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He's been in Victory House for 9 years.
Yeah.
At least that's what your LinkedIn says.
Yeah. No. I started as an intern.
Okay.
So I interned there, then I was a case manager, and then I left for like a year and then came back and worked as pretty much every position: program director, associate executive director.
Yeah.
Finally took on the role as executive director.
I love it.
In and out 9 years.
Yeah. So executive director for 3 years now, yeah? Or going on 3?
Yeah, I think it was 2025. Yeah, 2022, I think is when I took over.
Nice. And for those who don't know who Victory or what Victory House is, and I'll let you do a better explanation, but they provide housing and shelter for homeless veterans, right? And they're coming up on 40 years of operation in April, which is amazing.
April.
And then you also have a small business called Flip It Collectibles, yeah?
Collectibles, yeah.
I like it.
Been doing that my whole life. So.
Yeah. All right. Nice. Well, hey, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's just jump right in if you don't mind.
No, let's go.
I would love for you to tell me like how you came to be who you are. Like I want to hear about, how you got to joining the military, your experience in the military, and then out and how you got to be, executive director of Victory House.
Yeah, let's do it. So I'm a Lehigh Valley native. I was born in Allentown. Went to Moser Elementary School, South Mountain Middle School, William Allen High School. Got into sports. I played sports when I was younger. Met a lot of good people through that I still continue to talk to today. But when I was in high school, I had a normal life, and then nothing crazy. We lived in some lower, some pretty bad neighborhoods. But nothing to the point where it was like, I didn't have a supportive family around me and I didn't have supportive friends. It was just kind of a normal life. So I went to William Allen High School, and I was a techie. I did VOTech while I was there, and I worked in auto body collision repair.
Oh, cool.
And then when 9/11 happened, my interest sparked for the military. It was a big major event, and it was something I said, you know what, I really want to go serve my country. So I got to the time where I was getting ready to graduate, and I didn't really know where I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't really too keen on going and doing auto body, and I had this want to serve my country at the same time. So I walked over to the recruiter's office. It was in Allentown, and I told him, I said, I'd like to join the Air Force. Picked the Air Force because my dad was a Marine, and he actually recommended something other than the Marines. Sorry, PJ.
I heard similar things, man.
Sorry, PJ, but
I just didn't listen.
Yeah, he recommended, something different, either Army or Air Force. And I had a background in like auto body collision repairs, and I said, you know what, maybe I'll join the Air Force and I could do maintenance on the aircraft or something like that. So I enrolled into the late entry program, and I did my ASVAB and all that, and they basically put me into what was called like open mechanics. So meaning that I would be able to secure my AFSC, which is basically your job in the military under some type of mechanics position. So I went in and I got what was called aerospace ground equipment, and I went to basic training, and then we went to like a year-long tech school. And eventually I found myself stationed at Barksdale Air Force Base after Texas's training regiment. I was in San Antonio for basic, Shepherd Air Force Base for the AIT is what, I know other branches call it. For us, we call it tech school.
Yeah.
But then I ended up in Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana, which was a totally different world for me than Allentown, Pennsylvania. Let's just say that it was very outdoors. Basically everybody there was into fishing and hunting, and that wasn't something that I grew up on.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a totally different environment for me. But I met a lot of good people while I was there, and started my career off, working with aerospace ground equipment. And then I've been to Guam on a beautiful deployment, which was absolutely amazing
gorgeous
place to be deployed at. I did a year in Osan Air Force Base, Korea, and I also finished my career up at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, which was another totally different environment from Barksdale and Korea, because in Virginia, you're basically saluting all day long. Like, there was just so much brass that you spent the time saluting all day long, which I really wasn't used to. So, but it was a beautiful Air Force career. You know, I learned a lot of lessons in the military, which I still utilize today. But what I miss most about it is the camaraderie, man. The guys that you're around, that you're willing to go through it with, you know, no matter what. People had your backs, and it was just some good camaraderie. I miss the guys a lot. So, and Grace.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. When did you get out?
2011. November. I actually went in on Veterans Day. That was my first.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. I spent Veterans. The first day in the military was Veterans Day. And I remember hopping off the aircraft and getting there and putting my foot on, you had to put your feet in the little block, and on Veterans Day just getting grilled by all the TIs that were on base and trying to break you down and everything. So it was pretty cool. And then I got out in 2011. I did two enlistments. So I did one in the full enlistment, and then I decided that, I was like, I still really don't know what I want to do in my life. So I ended up, re-enlisting for another 4 years. And then at 8 years, I had to make that decision. Like, okay, do I do another 4? And then I got to commit for the 20 because I'm 8 years away.
Right.
Or do I get out at 8 and make a commitment to really this new chapter of life, this new thing? And I decided at 8 that, it was time to get out and work on my new self, my new life. And what people don't realize that aren't part of the military is that's basically what you're doing. You're creating a new life. Yeah, you're keeping some of the things that you learned, but when you exit, it's a new life. It's, the military installations are basically their own cities. You go there, you have your PX, I guess is what Army and Marine call it. BX is what we called it, but you have your gas station on base, you got your gym, like everything's on base. So like it's a whole city basically. And people tell you what time you go to work, people tell you what time you gotta work out, all that stuff. So getting out is a whole new life. And I made that decision in 2011. I was going to get out and basically start over. And I did. So that's really how I got back here from, my experience in the military. So. And
you came right back here when you were done?
I did. Yeah. I came back home. I actually struggled when I got out of the military. I got in a really bad relationship, and I ended up spending a lot of my money, and I didn't have much. I literally had like a couple $100 in my account, and I got out of the military, and I was literally one no away from becoming homeless. So that's where my ties are pretty much to the homeless community is, I could see how somebody who, the family and everybody admired that can struggle from, just that separation alone. So I was in a bad relationship, and things didn't work out with that girl I was dating, and I came home with almost nothing. And luckily for me, I got one yes that really changed my life. My mom allowed me to move into her basement, and it wasn't like nowadays you see these basements that are fully done. There's in-law suites in there. I was like, no, it was like a basement. She had a couch down there and like a small separate room next to like the washer and dryer room where, there was a couch, TV, and, a small little room, and that was it, So I went there, and after months and months and months of, feeling sorry for myself and really not doing much with my life, I made a decision, and I said, you know what, it's time. It's time I put my foot forward and do something with myself. So that's when I decided to enroll in school. And so I enrolled. I literally like thought, what's the easiest? Because back then my mindset was so broke. Like I was thinking of what's the easiest thing I could do.
Right.
When you look at things and what's the easiest thing I could do and be okay at that. So I was like, the easiest thing I can do, I can think of right now of, my transition from the military life to the civilian life was be a police officer, probation officer.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I already have experience doing security on the flight line. I worked a little bit with the security forces crew. I was what's called an augmentee, where I did some things there. And I said, well, I know how to, shoot a firearm. I said, there should be a pretty decent transition. And typically, police, law enforcement is military hires. They hire a lot of military really fast. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get an associate's degree in criminal justice. And so that was my plan. I was like, I'm going to get an associate's degree in criminal justice. And I'm like literally reminiscing right now.
Yeah, man. Let's have it.
I enrolled into the criminal justice program at Northampton Community College. And I was just, I don't know what it was about it, but maybe it was just because of the military, but everything was so easy for me. Like all these exams, like I felt like I didn't really have to put much effort towards it, and they were just like super easy for me, all the criminal justice courses. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And while I was there, I did an adopted apartment. I think it was either at Penn State or NAC. I can't remember which one it was, but I did an adopt an apartment project where I helped out a homeless family. And on this project, we went in and it was an empty apartment, and we set up the apartment. We set up their pantry. We made their beds, like, oh, that's cool. Little corners on their bed. It was just a beautiful thing for this homeless family. A woman and her 2 kids. And finally, at the end, when we set this whole thing up, we got to meet the people that we were helping. And this lady came in with her little daughter, and her daughter was like running around this little small tiny apartment, and her face was just so lit up, and there was like this box on the floor. I think it was like a dresser drawer or something. She's like, Mom, is that where I'm sleeping? She's like, no, sweetie, you have your own bed. And like this girl's face, and this girl jumping around so excited about having her own bed. Wow. Man, this feels good. Like, this is awesome. Like, the appreciation and the gratitude for something that I take for granted and most people take for granted, like having just a place to sleep. I said, man, this is an amazing feeling right here. I said, I'm going to chase this. So I ended up I ended up graduating with my degree in criminal justice. But I said, there's more I can do. So I kind of put the goal of becoming a probation officer aside, and I enrolled in rehabilitation and human services at Penn State, which is just crazy to me because at 18 years old, if you would have told me that I was going to go to Penn State University, I would have been like, no.
Why?
Well, just because at that time I was looking, as being a mechanic, and I didn't really have a lot of I didn't really have like the math courses. I didn't really feel that I was smart enough to kind of do all those type of things. The courses that I took in high school were just the basics that, to get by, and I really exceeded at, the mechanical type of stuff. So like when I went to college, I was a techie that went straight into the Air Force. So when they told me I had to do Algebra 2 and all these crazy English courses and all these other things, I was basically starting from scratch.
Yeah.
But one thing the military had taught me is that, sometimes you got to put in extra work to get the results that you want. So I remember struggling with like algebra. I think it was like an Algebra 2 or something. And I remember the professor, and I had no clue on how to do any of that because I don't even remember taking an algebra course in high school, and that was 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, so I remember just talking to him and being like, I'm lost, professor. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying my best here, but it's just not setting with me. And he said, I'll tell you what. He's like, come see me before the classes and then come see me after, and I'll help you with all this. So I did. I said, all right, cool. Like, this guy's offering his time to coach me and train me, which is, we'll probably talk about later on, which is so important to find people in your life that are willing to coach you and help you out with different things.
Yeah.
But I met with him, and he helped me. He helped me from the most basics to the end, and I ended up, I think I ended up getting like a B+ or something in that class, which was crazy because I couldn't figure anything out, before I started working with him, before I started basically coaching with him, and then I ended up graduating the class with like a B+, and I ended up, doing really well in college. I think it was like a 3.8 GPA.
Wow. Yeah, nice, man.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I was a techie, you know, and I went into the military. So I did really well in college. And then it came time to graduate. And before graduation, the cool thing about Penn State, the program that I was in, is they had an internship program that was very in depth. It was a 40-hour work week, and I think it was for like 3 months or something like that.
It's like the co-op center, right?
It was well, yeah, I guess kind of. It was whatever it was a 40-hour work week, and you had to do the whole semester there, which was really cool. So I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I was like, man, I really want to chase this feeling of helping out the homeless. I said, this felt great. And I said, I still feel like I can help my brothers and sisters as well. So I literally Googled Lehigh Valley veterans homelessness. And what popped up was Victory House in Lehigh Valley. So I made a phone call. I said, hey, I'm getting ready to do my internship from Penn State University. And I found you online, and I was wondering if I can come do an internship. And he's like, yeah, the executive director at the time, Pat, he's like, yeah, come on in. He's like, so I came in and I interviewed with them, and he offered me the internship on the spot. For me, this is how God works. Things just fall into place. For me, it was a beautiful thing because I started off working with a case manager that was there training, and then she had to go out of medical leave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she had to go out of medical leave. So they were like, hey, like, we need a case manager. You're doing a really good job here. Would you be interested in taking over her position until she returns? And we'll pay you. And I'm like, oh, snap. Now paid position. I do this. I'm like, this is cool. So, he put me on as a temporary case manager, and they paid me to do case management with clients. And I did that until it was time for her to return. And then when she returned, I ended up accepting a position doing case management for veterans in a drug and alcohol facility. And I ended up working with vets there, and I was a very on-the-ground case manager where I would go out in the community and I would get to learn all these different programs and really basically put a resource binder together of all these ways that I could help people. Because I realized earlier in my career that I didn't have to do everything on my own.
Yeah.
I realized that case management, but really any business, any nonprofit, anything out there is really about having resources available, knowing who to call, knowing the right people, knowing how to get people, their end goals and what they want. And, like Jordan and Pippen, Jordan didn't have to do everything himself. It was great. He could do everything himself.
Yeah.
Right from the day, he didn't have to. He had Pippen and Rodman and all those people that had specific design jobs that got him championships.
Yes.
So I realized that I said, I realized I didn't have to do it all myself. I realized I could reach out to some of the people who specify in drug and alcohol to help me with the drug and alcohol issues. I realized I could reach out to people who are specifically there for mental health issues that can help people with mental health. So I was really just a navigator. I was the best at making assists, so basketball terms, good at saying you could take care of this, you could take care of this. And then I was just kind of putting everything together on a sheet. You're using this for this and this. And, I did really well. I made a lot of great connections in the community. I've always believed in not burning bridges, and always had a good relationship with Victory House. So one day when I was at Treatment Trends, we started a brand new program called the Center of Excellence, and I was their first hire for that. When I got there, it was literally like an empty office, and they were delivering the desks and all these other things. And I was like, I made this background. I started putting these together. So I was literally putting the desks together as this new case manager for this new program that they started called the Center of Excellence. So full transparency, if the desks fell apart or the chairs fell sorry, yeah, right. It is what it is. But we put this program together called the Center of Excellence, where we were helping people out that were in the struggle of the opioid crisis. So this was, and my years may be a little off, but I want to say this was around like 2016, 17. where clients were coming up to our door that just used, and our job was to get them assessments and get them into treatment and then be there for them for the follow-up, provide case management and all that stuff. So we were like on the grounds treatment, like the first stop that they made. We would interview the chronic clients, and we would even provide some transportation to guys into the treatment facilities. I remember doing assessments with people in the hospitals, like really on the ground. Really at their worst point, we were there trying to get them help. So one day I was walking up into work, getting ready for my day, and I received a phone call from the old program director at Victory House, and she's like, I'm moving to Florida. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, congratulations, that's awesome. And started talking to her, and she said, well, the reason why I'm calling you is I'm trying to see if you'd be interested in my job. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, I always loved Victory House. It was a step forward in my career. It wasn't just a lateral move. It was a step up. And I said, yeah, I'd definitely be interested in. I hate to leave what I'm, doing now and what we've started, but I understand that, opportunities come and you got to seize those opportunities, which is the big thing for the people that are going to be listening is, when opportunities show you, sometimes they're very fearful, but those who jump are those who typically end up in places that they want to be.
Yep.
So, the opportunity occurred. She said, hey, would you interview for my job? And I said, yeah. So I set up an interview with the executive director that I interviewed with for my internship. And
you again.
Yeah, literally on the spot, he offered me the job. He said,
that's awesome.
We've worked with you as an intern. You did a fantastic job. He said, I love the skills that you built in case management. And he said, we've been following you because I was using Victory House as one of my providers for when I had guys that left treatment. I'd call Victory House and say, hey, do you have a bed available? I think this guy would be a really good fit for your program. It's structured. He needs the structure. He needs the supports. And I would use Victory House as my housing provider for the guys that were leaving rehabs. So I always kept a good relationship. And that, like I said before, that's been a key for me in my growth is securing relationships with people and not ruining them. Mm-hmm. Because I see a lot of people in this field that burn a lot of bridges and it gets very difficult to help our clients if your bridge is burnt in several different areas.
Absolutely.
So there on the spot, he offered me a job. He said, hey, I think you'd be a great fit here. He's like, I see what you've been doing, and I really like the things that you're doing for the clients, but I also, I like how you've been building programs and helping them grow. And I said, yeah. So he offered me a job. I took the position. I got like a week of training or something. And it was kind of weird because I kept the position that I had at the same time, and then came in really early in the morning to train with the program director that was getting ready to leave because she was already planning on going to Florida. So there was a very short time period that, I had available for training. But again, going back to the military, sometimes you got to change your hours. Sometimes you got to do what needs to be done to get the job done.
Yep.
I don't know how many times we ended up, working 12, 14 hours to fix a generator that was down to get it back on the flight line so we can get the aircraft repaired.
Yep.
On when we're, in Mach 4 in Korea and the sirens go off, like, you ain't going home. So like, those are things I learned in the military that really helped me in my career. So I put some extra hours in. I did both jobs in a training capacity for the one and then in an exiting capacity for the other. So I had to help out the staff that was coming on there. And eventually I took over as the program director at Victory House. And while I was there, while I was in the program director position, we've done a lot of great things. One of the things is, bolstering our drug and alcohol program to help the clients that are relapsing. At one point in this field, a lot of the organizations would discharge people to the streets and as they would relapse. And, the thought behind that was, they're going to make all the other people relapse, but that's not really the case. My thing was, I said, well, I've already got all these connections in getting people into treatment. Like, why not use them to get people that relapse into treatment? So we started some new policies, which at the time didn't go over too well with, the current people that we had, because we had everybody doing the same thing for so many years, you know. So I talked to him and I said, look, I said, just trust me on this. I said, this will be something that will really benefit our program, but most importantly, benefit our clients. I said, because, you know, if somebody leaves here and they end up, you know, overdosing in the street and we didn't even offer them help with that, then we're all going to feel bad. And it's something that I don't think anybody should take with them. So we started some policies and started some programming where we used the connections that we had to get people into treatment faster. So when a client relapsed, we would meet with them. We'd offer them different opportunities. The first and foremost is to get a drug and alcohol evaluation, like go see a specialist that can actually do an evaluation on you and seeing if you meet criteria for some sort of treatment. And that worked out very well. We still do that to this day. When somebody relapses, we don't discharge them without offering them some sort of solution, offering them some sort of help. Not all clients take that help, which is okay, but we offer it to them, you know. And then we ended up getting, I ended up hiring what's called a certified recovery specialist on staff, which is somebody that is in drug and alcohol recovery. That can kind of show the guys the ropes, kind of help the guys with whatever it is, their triggers. And somebody that's been through it that can explain, like, I've been through this, I've been in your shoes. This is what helped me. And this is what can help you. So
Yeah.
we started with that program and did a good job. And then we brought mental health from Northampton County on board. And we've started serving clients with certain types of mental health issues. And yeah, now Victory House. So we are known historically for serving veterans. We have currently the only grant per diem program in the Lehigh Valley from the Department of Veterans Affairs, so we're contracted with that. But we also have a non-veterans component that a lot of people don't really know about, where we serve our non-veterans as well. But we're historically known for, we specialize in veterans treatment. You know, I'm a veteran. A lot of our board of directors are veterans. One of the ones was on this podcast a couple weeks ago, Chris.
Yeah.
So we're heavily veteran focused, but we do serve non-veterans as well, which I feel really helps out our non-veteran population, because I task our veterans at Victory House to really be leaders.
Sure.
And yeah, because I think that's one of the things that veterans forget about, like leadership. That's one of the things that we can be for our community, be for our society. And I have a quote that I've said plenty of times, and I tell our guys, leaders create leaders. So
absolutely,
once you lead by example, I said other people are going to see that and follow you. So if you're making your bed every day, if you're going to your meetings, if you're taking care of chores and you're helping out others, people are going to see that and they're going to gravitate towards you and they're going to want to help out others. So that's one of the big things I see at Victory House that's a lot different than the other programs in the area, is that our goal is really to create leaders and then have them lead others and shine their lights and get other people out there to really join our mission, which is to help help our homeless community succeed. That's really what we want to do. That's really where we're at. I have previous clients that are working at other shelters at the moment. I have current clients that are working at other shelters at the moment. I have previous clients that are on our board of directors. I have previous clients that are working for drug and alcohol. I have previous clients that are working at healthcare facilities, St. Luke's, and they're everywhere. And it's a beautiful thing to see that. It's a beautiful thing to see somebody that received assistance and now that are out there helping others.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rewarding to see somebody change their life and continue to walk down that path after they've been hit by so many so many issues, so many stones while they were out there in the struggle. So yeah, that's kind of my story a little bit. I know it kind of went on a lot and didn't let you speak much, but
no, hey, I'm not here to speak. Yeah, you are. Brother, there is so much goodness there. And oh man, I'm kind of struggling to figure out where to go next with that. You've talked about a couple of key moments, that helped as like a segue into like a next chapter of your life that I think is incredible. Like one being that, getting out, you had this really bad relationship and it sent you down this path, albeit downwards, right? At first, right?
Yeah.
But that's a defining moment, and it shaped you in ways.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. It's 100% shaped me. It's so funny because like, I remember at that time, I'm like, oh, I can't believe this happened to me. I can't believe this happened to me.
Yeah.
When you're down, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, you're just like, oh man, like it's like everything's closed off and you don't see what could be. And, and I know there's a lot of like podcasts out there that have said this quote before, but it is so true. Things don't happen to you. They happen for
you. Yep.
Things don't happen. And I didn't see that at the time. And there's been times even to this day, I don't see it. I don't know why certain things happen, but somehow, somewhere or another, things so far in my life, God has always had my back and always figured out a way to make whatever happened so much better in the long run. Which is just a beautiful thing. Well, now like I get to help out those that were in the situations that already, which is really dope.
Yeah. Well, but I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at is like our brains are meant to like generalize, delete, and filter, right? Like. We can't literally see everything. Our brains literally don't have that capacity. So when we're in that sort of a mindset where it's really, really tough, it's hard for us to pull our heads out and be like, wow, yeah, that sucked. However, that was such a key point in my life that helped shape, like you probably, and I couldn't, who knows, but you might not be here if it weren't for that really terrible experience up front, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that could have went different directions. Yeah. In my life that, yeah, exactly. I mean, I may not, I very well might not have been here if I had chose to go a different path, or if I didn't make that choice to, go back to school, or like you said, if I hung around it was in Bethesda, Maryland, when I was going through that relationship, and like there's so many different things, or I mean vice versa, maybe on the flip end, if I didn't make that decision that I wanted to change my life at the 8-year point, I might not be here, and it's interesting to me, and one of the things is like I never realized that like my service would come more outside of the military than it's been in the military, because like I joined to serve my country, and I did honorably. I served for 8 years, but I can really honestly say that this last 8 years I believe I've served my country, my community, the veterans that are there way more than I would have possibly done if I would have stayed in the military. Right. Which is a crazy thing to think about. So, which, brings me to something I want to share with the audience is you don't have to be in the military to serve your community. Yeah. I think a lot of people forget about that. They're thank you for your service doesn't have to only go out to military members. Thank you for your service can go out to the people that are out there that are working in human service fields, people that, are protecting you, like police officers and everything. When you see people out there, handing out food to the homeless community, when you see people out there that are working with people who struggle with mental health problems or whatever, like, don't forget to thank them as well. Absolutely. They're serving people. Yep. I think that thank you for your service really only happens for people that they know that are military veterans, and it should expand a lot farther than that, because I know people that's dedicated their entire lives to helping others. There's plenty of people in our field in human services that's been doing it for 20, 30 years and beyond. So, don't forget to thank them for their service as well when you see somebody doing something nice. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've had an incredible like ripple effect with what you're doing. And I agree with you, like a real leader creates leaders, like that is a true mark of a leader. And there's a lot of books. I mean, it's not like I'm making this stuff up, right? There's a lot of books on this, right?
We've read them all.
Right? But it's a beautiful point. If you're able to go out and actually mold other people to go out and make a difference, I mean, like that's a true mark of a leader, man. You're inspiring me. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I also, again, to kind of touch on that point though, of like being able to take something that was a trial in your life and be able to pull the good from it is an incredible skill that I think that we actually do get a bit of in the military, because a lot of it does suck.
Yeah.
And being able to pull the goods out from that, I challenge you all to figure out ways to do that.
I think it's is it Patton that said embrace the suck?
Embrace the suck, man. But it's so true.
Strong.
There's so many learnings in there.
There is, yeah. And it's like, you know, and it's 100% true, because like, and like we just talked about with this situation, like even you look at basic training, you know, it's very traumatic,
right?
Traumatizing.
Yes.
A lot of things that you go through that the normal civilian population didn't have to go through, but they might have gone through at some different point in their lives. But I look back on basic, and I look back on all the issues that I had in the military, and I'm like, wow, like that was pivotal in the person that I became.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sucked at the time. Yeah, I didn't want to be in mop floor sweating, and you know, yeah, I didn't want to be stuck in a dorm with 50 other guys for, you know, a month or whatever it was. But at the end of the day, like, you know, I learned a lot. I one of the best things that I think happened for me while I was in the military was getting to communicate with so many different people.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah,
I was from the Lehigh Valley, and I, you know, kind of like a shelter. I only knew Lehigh Valley people. You know, when I went in the military, I remember there was a guy in our platoon that was from Italy. There was guys from all over the country. There was different accents, and they ate different foods, and there was just all kinds of you know, difference, which was just such a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is.
You know,
it's a blessing for sure.
Yeah, so like you know, you get to communicate with so many different people and get to love each other, and you know, like you know, build some bonds. You know, it's good. It's, you know, something I miss. Like I said, it was good to build those bonds, but it was also cool because we got to you know, get to know different people, different cultures, and which I think is kind of, you know, one of the reasons why, you know, DEI is also important, is because you get to work with different cultures, you get to understand different things, you get to, you know, work with different type of people who think differently than you, that have different, you know, morals and all that kind of stuff.
So, well, I mean, that's one of the big reasons our country is as beautiful and great as it is. It's a melting pot, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
We have all of these different perspectives, and there's a lot of evidence that shows when you have different perspectives, you're able to be more innovative.
100%. And I've said this too with like hiring and developing my team. I said, I don't want someone that thinks like me.
Yeah,
got me.
Absolutely.
I don't want someone that thinks differently than me. That's going to bring different perspectives and bring different views, and you know, come up with different ideas, because my brain can only go so far. And when you have multiple brains all focused on one mission that are coming up with different ways, is really when growth occurs. So, and I think that's a big reason why we've been able to be so successful for the last 40 years, is because we've had different types of perspectives and different type of people that can bring, you know, their experience and their views to the table, and we can work out something together that's the best benefit for our clientele. So
I like this. I want to shift a little bit here. You know, there's kind of on this note of being in the moment, and also being able to look back and reflect on different aspects, and what something actually means at the time versus later. You know, like, so when you were in the process of getting out, you were going through that, like, what was your primary focus? What did you perceive at that time as your biggest challenge?
Going back home with nothing. Although I had plenty, at that moment in my life, I perceived that I had nothing. So here's the deal. Like, when I got out of the military, I looked at all my friends, I looked at my families, I looked at my family, and I looked at all these people, and I said, wow, like, that person started their own family already. They got their own house. They got a good career. They got all these things. So I started doing something that I don't recommend to anybody, is I started judging myself based on what other people were doing.
Yeah.
And based what I
comparisons to thief
compared to what other people were doing. But I realized now in my life that a lot of times, and this is when social media was just really coming out, social media is not always a reality. But
100%.
I perceived that everybody had all their stuff together and I didn't. So here I was at close to 30, getting out of the military, looking around, and I seen everybody seem to have their life together. And I'm like, man, I'm literally starting from nothing. You know, I have no money. I have no relationship. I have no family. I have no job. I have nothing. Like, you know, so I really, at that time, I was like, man, I'm starting from scratch. I'm starting all over. And not only that, I just lost the family that I had, which was my military, you know, brothers and sisters. We had our master sergeants was like the dad, and we had, you know, think about it. Like, if you look at things from that aspect, like you had your depending on what rank you were, you know, I was a staff sergeant, so like I was the dad to the airman. So it's like, but you had like your family hierarchy, your family, right. You know, you did everything with them. You know, I woke up in the morning and did PT in the morning with the guys, and then went into work, and then after work you went out and drank or whatever it was that you enjoyed doing, and then the next day was the same thing. So you're surrounding yourself with the same people over and over again. When you transition out of the military, you no longer have that.
Right.
You have yourself. So for me, that was a big, like, you know, it was a big moment in my life that I was struggling with for a while, because I said, you know, wow, like, did I make the wrong choice of getting out of the military? And I heard all these voices inside my head over and over again from like the higher commanders, you know, the master sergeants, and first sergeant even had a conversation before I got out, and they always saying, well, what are you going to do, you know, with yourself when you get out? This is your career. You're good at it. You know, I remember he's like, try to sell me, you know, he and he meant it with like a good heart, but he's
right.
You know, try to act as if I'm an employer, try to sell yourself to me right now. And I didn't have I didn't know. I didn't have anything to tell him. I tried, and he's like, I wouldn't hire you. And I'm like, so
damn.
I was like, no, he was being honest.
Yeah.
He was trying to teach me that you can't just go in and say, you know, I was an aerospace ground equipment mechanic.
Sure.
B-52.
Yeah.
Hire me to do whatever. And so I got out, and I actually applied for a job at a local candy factory when I had first gotten out, and my mom worked there. So I was like, oh man, I'm a shoo-in for this position as a maintenance job. And I applied, and I got an interview, and I went in to do the interview, and they interviewed me, and then they didn't give me the job. They said, I'm sorry that right now you're just not the right fit for this position.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am. I've worked on millions and millions of dollars of the most expensive aircraft in the world. You know, I finished up my career on F-22s.
Wow.
I started out on the B-52s. You know, I've worked on with the A-10s. Now I worked on the ground support equipment, but that was, you know, some of our like start carts and stuff were super expensive, like just, and everything in the military, you know, I seen something about $900 bag of screws, but that's how it was. Yeah, it was like everything was to that point. You had to safety wire the screws together, like very deep and technical. And here I am, I applied for a job at a candy factory, and I can't get a job for fixing a machine that runs a conveyor belt. What a slap in the face.
Yeah, man.
Thinking I'm a shoo-in. My mom worked there, and I can't even get a job doing maintenance at a candy factory. So that even, you know, hit me even harder. I was like, oh my God, like now what do I do? So that put me in a little bit of a depression, put me in a slump. But like I said, I stopped feeling sorry for myself one day. I started what was really important, and this hopefully the listeners are listening to this for a reason. What was really important to me is I started spending my downtime listening to people out there that were putting out good energy, good vibes into the world. You know, like Tony Robbins, and you know, Ed Milet's, and I mean, there's just a ton of them. Dan Graziosi, like there was just so many people out there that were putting out good energy, putting out good vibes, that were telling the truth about, you know, having to put in work, having to put effort, but at the same time, letting you know that there is hope, letting you know that there's a bigger picture, there are bigger things. So I started doing that. I started reading, which I was not a reader. My life, I'll tell you, like, I probably read one book before I got out of the military, which was like Indian in the Cupboard for some book project that I had to do while I was in school. has zero like invite. Don't at me, you idiot cover fans. Don't at me on this one. But
remember the movie?
And I do.
Yeah, right.
But in my recollection of the book, it had no educational value going forward. But hey, it is what it is. If you could break it down and tell me why, it's fantastic. But then I started reading books. I read just a plethora of different books. My favorite book of all time is called The Four Agreements.
Oh my God. Have you read The Fifth Agreement?
I have it.
There's one more.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
Yeah. The whole Mastery of Love.
The whole thing.
Oh, so good, man. Such great books.
I've actually, not only did I read those books, I've actually handed that book out to several clients that came through our program. And so I started focusing on putting good things into my mind, putting good things into my body, started listening to people that, were putting out good messages instead of allowing myself to put out the negative messages, allowing myself to focus on the people that were putting out the negativity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like I said, and then I made a decision. I said, you know what, it's time. I can do this. I've heard millions and millions of podcasts and heard millions and millions of stories about people that were in a way worse situation than I did that made something in their lives. So I said, well, if they can do that from there, I can do that from here. So I started focusing on energy. I started focusing on good vibes. I started focusing on growth. And I went back to school. That was a major decision that I made, is going back to school, and it served me well. It did, and put me in a position to get my foot in the door to the position that I'm in now. So,
dude. Well, you already hit one of my questions. Your favorite book? No, I love that actually. The Four Agreements is such an incredible book. I would highly recommend it to everyone. And I guess what we can do is we can put that in the description.
Yeah, definitely.
Really, really good one. I was going to ask, like, what was it that pulled you out of that? Like who introduced you, or how did you even like turn your mind on to be able to like open up to some of this content? Because you could have just as easily been like, I mean, I've suggested things like Tony Robbins or Ed Milet or, some of these folks to plenty of people and just had them be like, that's not for me. What was it that turned your mind onto it?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly like who it was. I know there was I was part of a mastermind group in Utah. There was a group called Lions Last Sheep, and there was a guy named Sean Whalen that had a book out that was called How to Make Shit Happen. And it was a really small book, and it was like maybe a paragraph. Like it wasn't a long book, but he had these elements in the book that he talked about called the Core Four. And it was power, passion, purpose, and production. And the whole thought behind that was, working out, taking care of your body, passion, doing something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Getting a better relationship with your God. And in purpose, doing something purposeful, every day. And this is daily tasks that you can do every day. And in production was make some kind of money at some point. It's very important in life. So I joined his group and I met a bunch of other people, but most importantly, they started dropping these different people that you can follow and different books that you can read that helped out. So like we said before, it was kind of a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And I started meeting a bunch of different people that were all onto different types of things, whether they wanted to fix their relationships, whether they wanted to get better at, making more money in their career field or obtaining it. Like everybody was out for something bigger. And that's kind of how, and it just trickled from there. I started listening to various podcasts. I said Ed Milet's one that I love listening to. David Goggins, although he's a little bit much, he has a great story and
he does.
About, perseverance and putting in work to get to where he wants to be. Jesse Itzler, I like him a lot too. He's got some good stuff, but Eric Thomas is probably the best motivational speaker there is. He's fantastic.
But it's good. Put him on the list.
So yeah, I mean, I just started listening to different podcasts. What I did realize in following a lot of these people is that, like I said, not everything is as it seems.
Yeah, how about that?
You got to really understand that. It's really easy to take a picture next to, sports cars and jets, but there's a lot of hidden between those photos. So that's one thing I always have to constantly remind myself. Like, there's, no matter what people are posting, there's always much more that's going on in the background that you just can't see. So I didn't idolize any of those people. At one time, I looked at all of them and said, man, I wish my life was here. But the more and more I learned is that, don't idolize another person. There's, use some of the good, but understand there's probably some bad in there too.
Yeah. Well, comparison is the thief of all joy.
It is. It really is too.
Yeah.
And even to this day, I still see, like, I think comparison is a normal thing. Like, I think that, but I think it's being able to identify when you're comparing and really changing your mindset in the moment. That's really helpful. Because to this day, I still do it. I see another organization that got a $100,000 grant or something. I'm like, man, why didn't we get that? I'm like, well, you never even applied for it. So, well, why would you have got something? But they may be doing that, but they may have other struggles that they're
absolutely
that you're not seeing.
Yeah.
Even some of these, you look at some of these larger organizations. Wow, they're killing it. They're killing it, but they may have trouble making payroll. Like, you never know, and vice versa. Like, if you're doing the best for what if you're doing the best for you right now and for the people, if you're helping out others and you're doing what you can, I don't feel the need to compare myself to others as long as I'm trying to be a good human and all that. So that's big for me though, and I think that's big for a lot of people is that comparison thing. And it's so easy right now.
Oh yeah.
Because you
go to Instagram, TikTok, you're like, damn, why am I like that?
That little computer that's in your hand can really change the game for you. It can put you into a positive mindset, but it can also put you into a negative mindset pretty fast. So one of the things that I'll share with the people, a tip, a trick that I've learned is, if you're scrolling on your newsfeed and you come across the same person that has 3 negative posts in a row, you got to unfollow. Either unfollow.
Oh, wow.
News. Yeah, I do.
Interesting. Oh, that's cool. It's a good tip.
Yeah. So because you'll find those people that are just negative. And if you keep your feed with that, so say you're a scroller and you scroll on, if you keep that in your feed, that's just going to keep putting that in your head.
Yeah.
So follow the people that are putting out good stuff. Click the follow button on all those, and they'll appear in your feeds. And if somebody's putting out negative, just click snooze. You don't have to unfriend them. You don't have to. You can unfollow them, but I do that because I'm like, man, if this person I just don't need this in the morning when I wake up, and so just a good tip. You could. Not only on social media, you can do that in your life too. Like, if there's somebody that's always bringing you down, there's probably a reason why they shouldn't be in your life at that moment. So,
there's a beautiful, I don't know what you would call it, from Jim Rohn back in the day, where he talks about, like, if a friend of yours puts sugar in your coffee, what do you get? Well, you get sweet coffee. But if a friend of yours puts strychnine in your coffee, what happens? It doesn't matter if it's your friend or not. You're still going to be poisoned. You're still going to die.
Yeah.
You got to stand guard at the gate of your mind. It's garbage in, garbage out.
100%. And it's identifying that too.
Which is really challenging sometimes.
Very challenging, because some people can appear as though they're putting the sugar in, but they're actually putting the poison in. So you gotta watch that, but at the end of the day, like I tell people, like, as long as you're doing things with an open heart, things usually work out.
Yeah, but
there was like a football show. He would say, "Clear eyes, full heart." I don't even remember what it's called, but "Clear eyes, full heart, can't lose." That was pretty dope.
I like that.
As long as you have clarity and your heart's open, at the end of the day, you can't lose. And even farther, so here's the cool thing too. And so say somebody crossed you, say you find somebody that tried to harm you, that was a snake or whatever it was. Instead of like looking at it in a negative direction, look at it in the positive. Oh, I found him now. I found out now when things weren't as important, rather than keeping somebody for later on in my life that they could screw me over at a different point. You know what I mean? Like, so sometimes when I see people that are doing harm and stuff, I say, oh, well, I'm glad I identified that now rather than later when it could have they could have gotten even closer. It could have blew up even farther. So even when people cross you just look at that like, oh, I'm glad I figured that out now to where it was, at a different moment in my life.
I like that. Adding gratitude to situation.
Exactly. Like, would you rather, would you rather be out in the open now, who you're dealing with, what's happening, or would you rather have to wait till later on? Like, get it over with. I know I can't trust you, then that's cool. Like, move on to the next,
So going back to like the transition, now we talked about like what was the challenge at the time. Looking back, what was something you actually struggled with? Like what was really actually probably the bigger struggle?
Like a loss of purpose. I think that was the biggest struggle for me, is loss of purpose, loss of, when you're in the military, a lot of people back home, they're proud of you. They're like, oh, that's my son, he's serving in the military, or that's my brother, he's serving in the military. And you're also proud of yourself, right? Like, I'm serving my country. I was able to take care of this problem, and you're very proud of yourself. And then when you get out, when I got out anyway, I can't speak of everybody, but when I got out, I had lost that purpose. I was no longer, like I said, I felt I was no longer serving my country. I felt like I was no longer contributing to a higher thing. So for me, I think the loss of purpose was really hard for me until I figured out that purpose is when my darkest moments were.
Yeah.
And now, that I've figured out my purpose, which is to help people. Right now, it's to help people who are struggling with homelessness. Later on, I don't know what that's going to look like. But for now, I think I've rooted myself into that, helping out others. But back then, it was a real struggle for me because I was lost. I was confused. I prayed on it. And, I'm not typically a patient person. Want stuff, I want it fast.
I'm with you on that one.
So, as I can see, PJ had an idea to create a podcast. He's got 6 cameras and lights everywhere. But I'm not typically a patient person. I like things to happen quickly for myself. But at that moment in my life, God wanted me to develop some patience, and he put me in. I was in some hard times, but those hard times are what made me today.
Yeah.
There's 100%. Everything that I went through is what made me a better person, and it helped me with my patience. Now, I still struggle with that. Entirely, but...
So I was going to ask, what is something you still struggle with? Or is there something?
Oh, yeah. There's plenty of things I struggle with. Patience is definitely one of them. Not jumping to conclusions, I think.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Sometimes I even though I have faith that things are going to work out, those negative thoughts come through my head.
Sure.
Like it could be as simple as walking down the street to come here. I was like, man, what if I slip and fall? Like, it's just little things, but it's like, sometimes
our brains are built that way.
Our brains are built that way, and I think that's something that I struggle with sometimes too. Is I have faith that things are going to be well, but I also think too much about the possibilities of failure.
And how do you overcome that?
I have a good faith with my Lord. I pray a lot. I have a good supportive network where I can bump things off of, and I think they allow me to see things about myself that I didn't see. I have a therapist. I go to therapy once a month. Which is a game changer.
Yeah, it is 100%.
Finding somebody that
I completely agree.
Just openly talk to without worrying about anything. And my therapist, and I don't know if everybody's is like this, but I really view my therapist also as like a coach, because he provides me with different things that can help me out successfully in my life, relationship, career, like personal well-being, all kinds of things. So, I think that's super important. So therapy has helped me tremendously. Like I said, the people that I surround myself with, I try to only keep certain I try to limit myself in the amount of negative people I keep in my life. So
I'm with you on that one.
and you're not gonna, maybe you can, but I haven't figured out a way to get rid of all of them, which I think is okay. I think you still need people in your life that kind of sees the other side of things, but I try to limit them, and I try to focus on the people that have good energy and can veer me in the right direction. But I still struggle with that stuff. I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah. Well, thank you, for bringing up the whole therapy thing, like, especially with this audience, and it might be changing, and I hope it is changing, but like, I think especially in the past, there's been this big stigma,
100%,
around like therapy. And quite honestly, it's like you said, it's just someone that you can like openly talk to and maybe provide some insight on another side of things. And we as people are not really designed just to hold on to stuff. When we do, that's when like the anxiety and these negative thoughts, a lot of them really start creeping in. I mean, I think that it's incredibly important to find that person that you can talk to. And a lot of us, especially in the military, we have that sometimes with each other.
Yeah, we use each other as therapists sometimes. Like, what's funny is going back to what you said with that stigma. Before, I used to think that people went to therapy were weak.
Right.
Like I used to look at them like, oh man, you need a therapist. Like, what's going on with you?
Right.
But the more I grow and the more I go, the more I realize that it's actually the stronger people that are going to therapy because they're opening up about their issues and they're working on solutions to fix them.
Yeah.
See, the weak people just don't, they don't want to do nothing. They don't want to deal. It's just so hard. It's so hard to deal with these things that you're dealing with. The stronger people are saying, you know what, I have these issues and I'm going to deal with them. I'm going to figure out a way to
face them.
Yeah, face them. So realistically, it's not the weak that go to therapy. It's the strong people that go to therapy because they're looking at, they're finally letting go of that fear and they're opening up, getting it out and working on it.
Dude, beautifully said, man. I mean, like, I can't tell you the number of proverbial porcupines I've had to swallow. And like, it's hard. That's the hard work right there.
Yeah. And opening up to your therapist too. Because like, I think one of the first things
like, no, there's nothing wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly. The first things he said, he's like, you can come here and bullshit me all day long, but you're not hurting anybody but yourself. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
He's like, then you're just talking. So like when I go in there and I say, oh man, he's like, what's going on today? And I say, this, and this. Okay, let's talk about it. Like,
yeah.
Cool. So that's good. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, man.
Yeah, man. And it's important for people to know, if whoever out there is struggling with something and, is fearful that because of the stigma, I'm here to tell you that, you're not weak for going to therapy. You are very strong for going to therapy. And I think that if you give it a chance, it'll help your life like it helped my life. So
absolutely. So, all right. Man, you're setting me up with segues left and right, which is great. I appreciate that. Oh. So like, if you had to boil it all down and like give, one or two key pieces of advice to someone going through transition, it doesn't necessarily have to be for the service member themselves. It could be their family, loved ones, whatever. Like, what would that be?
I think one, it would definitely be, for me, what I could share with you guys that helped me a lot was dive into my higher power, which was my God. There's a Jeremiah 29:11, like, no eyes have seen, no ears have heard the things that are going to come for you. So realize that those things are available. Those things are coming. It's just that you may not see the direction on how they go. So for me, it's helped me a lot to kind of give up worry and put more faith into my Lord. One of the other key pieces of advice is take a piece of paper and write down where you're at and where you want to go, and develop some sort of map, and try your very best. I won't say that this won't happen, but try your very best to follow that map. I think what a lot of people struggle with, and even me to this day, is clarity. We struggle with clarity on what it is exactly that we want in life and where we want to go. And a lot of times, if we don't have a map, we're just kind of slapping stuff on a wall, and it's very difficult to go here, here, here,
Yeah.
here, when it's really here, going over some hurdles, and getting here. So I think it's important that, everybody tries to at least come up with some type of map of where they want to be in life, so they have the groundworks to get there. And one thing I will definitely say is it's okay if you don't know. It's okay if you don't know. It's okay if you're trying to figure that out. And if it's okay if it changes as well. That's another thing that's so important. Like, you don't have to stick to one thing. If you decide that you want to be a doctor, and then you go to school for a couple of years and you decide that's not for you, kind of like I did with criminal justice, and you want to veer in a different direction, that's 100% okay as well. It's your life, and you're meant to get it how you imagine it. So don't feel bad if you have to change that map. But having a map is cool and important, because I think a lot of people, they don't know where that point is that they want to be in their life, and you can't get to a place that you don't envision. The other thing is, put good stuff in your mind. Like I said, that's helped me a lot. Trying to stay away from the negative energy. Put good things in, read a little bit. If you don't have to read anymore. I mean, to be honest with you, I think it's better, but there's so many audiobooks and so many things out there right now.
Absolutely.
I drive about an hour to work every day, and I always have something. It's either a podcast or an audiobook at all times. I'm very rarely listen to music anymore. Sometimes I'll listen to some like meditation music or something, but for the most part, I would say 99% of the time I have some type of podcast on. It just puts good seats.
Yeah. And Tony calls that what? No extra time? The net time?
Probably, yeah. I've haven't listened to as many as I used to. I got a couple of his books, but yeah, he probably does. There's I know some people like to say keep planting seeds.
No, oh my God, I love that. Yeah. So he didn't, like, I didn't ask him to do that, by the way, but like, that's what the number 2 is exactly what Prize is about. Like, it's about creating that map. And to your point, like, and sorry for the quick plug, but I'm gonna make a quick plug.
Plug away.
Like, the whole point here is, like, a map is completely useless. We're taught this in the military, right? Unless you know both where you are and where you're going. And to your point, either or both of those can be very challenging for us to figure out. So, like, that is precisely what we're developing with the app, is like helping you figure out where you are, helping you figure out where you want to go, and then developing a map to get there and making it actionable. So thank you. Actually, that was awesome.
Yeah. I didn't even know that's where you go.
Yeah, man. You already touched on it. Your favorite book. I'll drop it in the notes. But yeah,
Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of good ones.
There's a couple of good ones he has. The Tolic Wisdom is.
That's right. Toltec. Toltec.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a fantastic book. I've listened to it on audio several times. I've read it, sitting there over and over. I've highlighted it.
Oh yeah, my book is all marked up. It's in the same way. And your favorite podcast was, you said, Eric?
Well, my favorite podcast is probably 2 different podcasts. One is the Ed Milet Show. He posts that every Thursday and Tuesday, I believe. But then there's another one. It's called The Place to Change Ministry by Eric Thomas and TJ Carson, where they do, ministries every Sunday. So I really like that. But yeah, the Ed Milet one's a great podcast. He's got some good people that come on there and give some good solid information on how to help yourself. So
he puts us some great vibes, man.
Oh man, see him in person. Even a whole nother.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I've seen him speak like 2 or 3 times, and he's dynamic. He's a dynamic.
I believe that. So last thing, like, what were some resources that you tapped into throughout your transition that really helped you along the way?
Like resources.
Yeah, like you think like benefits, nonprofits, government agencies, communities.
I tapped into every resource. Not necessarily for me to like get benefits or anything like that. My tapping into resources were more merely trying to understand what everybody did, and how it could benefit the people that I was going to encounter later on in my life. Because I knew what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to help people, and at the moment in my life now and the moment I was at, I knew that it was more either somebody who's struggling with addiction issues or homelessness. So I really focused on learning the resources for that. So like the county agencies were one. What a lot of people don't realize is your county that you live in has sub agencies within there that is dedicated to helping you. Like there's in Northampton County, there's a drug and alcohol agency, there's an agency on mental health, there's an agency on aging, there's pretty much anything that, you know, somebody needs to help them. So you can call up your counties and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, and they could point you in the right direction. That was one. I mean, I know a lot of different treatment providers in the area because I needed a connection. I needed a book of resources that I can connect to if somebody need help getting into some type of treatment. So I'll just call them. Say, hey, can you help me? No. Okay, cool. Can you help me? That's the other thing. Closed door isn't necessarily a closed opportunity. It's just a closed door it's temporary.
Yeah.
You know, you can find another way. There's always a way to find another way. So for me, like a lot of the resources out there were just that. But also with resources, I think we don't think about it as much, but resources can be people as well.
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
And I think sometimes we focus on agencies and organizations, but realistically, sometimes it's just the right person that you can call on. PJ, for example, you know, I know if I have, judging by this room, I know if I have any tech stuff that I need help with, I could call PJ. But even more of a, you know, as a veteran and as somebody else that's been through a lot in your life, and that's somebody that really, what I like about you is that you seem to be focused on the same things that I'm focused on, you know, especially when it comes to, you know, like you said, Tony Robbins, you do a lot of stuff with them and everything. So if I need some advice on, you know, my mindset and things like that, I can always call you up for that stuff. So it doesn't always have to be organizations and nonprofits. It could just be people that are where you're at that can help coach you to get to there, or people that can help point you in the right direction. So I think that's really important as well. Is sometimes it's just knowing that person, you know?
Yeah, man. Well, thank you for that. Where can people find you?
You can find me on IG. On IG, I think I'm Flip It Collectibles. My main jam is Facebook. TJ Carson on Facebook. I have a LinkedIn account too. It's Thomas J. Carson, like the 7th Thomas Carson. So that's why everybody calls me TJ.
Okay.
Or they said Tom at our house. Yeah, everybody's got a different nickname. But I'm Thomas J. Carson on LinkedIn. I also have a little website. It's on phone sites. It's called a Digital Business Card. I think it's just TJ Carson at phonesites.com.
Cool.
It's just like a little digital business card that can like tap on your phone and it'll pop up.
Oh, nice.
Pretty dope, but yeah. So also like some of, you know, there's been a lot of different podcasts and interviews and things on Google. You know, I've done a lot of different things. So, but my main jam is Facebook. Good plug for Meta, but my main jam is Facebook. You know, if you guys want to find me on there, I'd love to connect with everybody. So
cool, man. Yeah, we'll drop all that in the show notes and everything.
You can got my email as well.
Okay. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, 100%.
All right. I mean, you can have all kinds of people hitting you up.
Hey, that's cool. If I can help, I can help. If I don't get back to you right away, I understand.
Right.
Busy man.
Well, hey, thank you all for stopping by. Thank you for coming on the show, brother. It's been huge.
Yeah.
You know, please, you know, take the time to subscribe. We're going to be dropping a lot more episodes like this. Again, if you have any suggestions for how we can make this better, for people that we can have on the show, or, you know, questions that we could ask to help you all out, drop them in the comments. Happy to help in any way we can. Thank you, brother.
Thanks.